Good morning, world.
Oh my God.
Hello and welcome, one and all, to our Space and Time Together. Today on Bitcoin SV Blockchain Explain Like I'm 5, I am delighted to have as our guest a philosopher, a teacher, a leader, a deep thinker, and a very thorough worker. Someone who has been researching and advising in the Bitcoin blockchain ecosystem industry for many years now, an entrepreneur, and someone who is extremely brilliant. That is Bridget Doran. And bravo! Welcome, Bridget,
Hi.
to the conversation.
Hello. Thank you for that really sweet introduction. I'm humbled.
Oh, you're fabulous,
Oh.
darling. Yes, thank you. And I have been watching your many mind maps and infographics that you create to share knowledge with the world in a digestible form on these most complex topics of systems innovation in the world today. This is a new natural resource from the minds of people that we have the ability to tap into if we're so willing and if we have the know-how. So you are giving the people the know-how. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, that was very well put. A natural resource. I like the way you put that.
Well, thank you. So what's happening, Bridget? How are you today in sunny California?
Yeah, I'm good. It actually is sunny. It's early. It's 7 a.m. So I got up a little bit early because I didn't want to be completely just out of sleep for this call. So yeah, so I'm good. I'm really good. I love Southern California, the sun, the weather, the openness.
Oh, how fabulous. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm here in Marietta, Georgia, and we're having a most beautiful day today. The sky is clear and cool and full of sunshine through the trees. And speaking of trees, I'm a big tree hugger. Oftentimes, when I see a beautiful tree, I'll just walk up to it and give it a bear hug. And,
Oh.
You made a recent mind map that shows the micro of what a Bitcoin transaction is. And it was true to the nature of the tree branches or the Merkle trees in the infographic that you shared. And I thought that is so beautiful. So tell us, with your website, bsvbetter.org, you have created and crafted all of these wonderful resources for people to digest, to learn more about the micro and the macro of Bitcoin blockchain for the world. So where does your love of systems start? I know you have a background both in accounting. So tell us, how did this start for you in your life?
Yeah, sure. I have a background in both technology and accounting, and a lot of systems, like you said. I've been a database administrator, a network administrator, migrated into working a lot with data over the years, and ended up settling in on a lot of work with nonprofits. But where it all started is, it's kind of a joke, actually, but I like to say my journey with Bitcoin started when I was in third grade. Because my older sister and I, my parents had a whole bunch of books in the attic, and we started this little project where we turned all of the books into a library, and we used the Dewey Decimal System. I think I only vaguely, didn't know it was called that, but we did the card catalogs thing, and it was just a fun project, and my brain just naturally understood systems from a young age. And I've always sort of just probably more unconsciously migrated to systems because I understood that systems are, the whole, so they're a gestalt, but they are comprised of parts. And so the parts make up the whole, but the whole is something uh, uh, different than just any one part. And so I love how the parts work together, and it's really important to me to understand each individual part as it fits into the whole. And so I dig deep on systems that I love. I try to stay in my lane in the sense of the world is a vast place. And so when I choose something to go after, I go after it in a great depth. And so Bitcoin is one of those systems, and I love it.
Thank you. Yes, that is
Yeah.
beautiful. You were foreshadowing the MetaNet, it seems, with your third grade passion
Yeah.
project.
Right. Well, I mean, Bitcoin is an index, right? And so a library is an index. And so I think there's, it's a nice analogy for the Bitcoin blockchain, the library system.
It really is. And did anyone check out any of your books in the attic?
My sister, I actually asked my sister about this several months ago, and she had some of the books. Like there was in like one of the old Nancy Drew books, and she took some pictures. I don't know where they are, but yes, mom, and one of the books she shared, mom had signed it out. So apparently the
Oh,
parents were involved.
that's lovely. Yes, and it just shows that the joy of play and also that a sense of knowing, even from a young age, what our mission is for. Your years of experience in technology and accounting has grown into your leadership into the blockchain industry. And I believe since 2018, 2019 you have branched out as an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
Well, I actually started my own business in 2014. So I've worked for large corporations, universities, nonprofits, a software company, and then I think it was 2014 is when I started my own business. So I guess you could technically say my entrepreneurship started then.
Mm.
Um, I didn't start. I learned about Bitcoin in 2010 or 11. I
Wow,
still
early
had,
day.
yeah, it was pretty early, but I set it aside. I had 3 kids, was working, and I learned about it, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And I sort of had this sense that there was going to be some Trojan horse aspect of it because I sort of latched on to the narrative of, I mean, back then they didn't say digital gold, but they definitely were talking about it as, anonymous payments and such. But it was a revolutionary technology when I read about it back then. To me, it felt very revolutionary. But anyway, I set it aside and didn't really get back in until 2017. Yeah, and I started a nonprofit with a friend in Minnesota called the Minnesota Blockchain Initiative, and that was in 2018. So yeah, and then I woke up to BSV in 2019, and so I sort
Ah,
of never looked back.
right. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yes. And so when you first espied Bitcoin there, maybe you read the white paper or you read some information about it in 2011, and then you did engage in the trading aspect. Is that correct? Back in the day?
Not that back in that day. Not, I didn't start, accumulating coins until 2017.
Hmm.
And
So
that
then,
was
what was the interest, though, when you initially saw it and were musing over it for these years? What was your concept of it?
in the early days.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the early days, I think it was really, I thought, I just saw it as revolutionary with respect to the banking system, that we can have peer-to-peer payments without intermediaries. And so it was really just that simple. I'm sure I didn't even read the white paper. I might have scanned it, but I listened to a couple interviews of a guy that was teaching the quadrivium, which is a medieval system of, maybe you've heard of it, a medieval education system, and he
Ooh.
was into Bitcoin, and it just was like, it really sparked my curiosity. But I do remember talking to my son who had just started college, and I remember us sitting at the kitchen table talking about it, and we were both like, you know what, this is never going to fly. They want, the bankers are not going to give up their power. And so, back in that day, now in my, the education process and my evolving understanding, I
Hmm.
don't see the banks going away per se, but the way banking happens seems like it will definitely change. And so, yeah, it was really just
Right.
kind of simple back in that day, the way I looked at it. I didn't have a fuller understanding like I do now. So,
That's right. Yes. And I know that since those days, banking has certainly improved. I mean, I feel like competition has made everything better. So nowadays we have banking apps and we can easily transfer money using Zelle and other features that were just non existent, before Bitcoin. And the technology was there, the ability, the capabilities were there, but they really had no incentive to improve until really the lit the fire underneath of Bitcoin, that competition there. And it's not to say that it would be to replace banks, but for peer-to-peer transactions. That's fantastic. So then, most recently, you have been taking some courses where you are focused on the actual transactions and the script. So, why would you go dive so deep into the micro of it all?
right. So I've taken a lot of the BSV Academy courses, but it's only recently that I started taking the script class, and I've learned from other teachers about script. Uh, but the BSV Academy has a pretty holistic course that goes into really the script code, not any kind of like, you're really looking at the guts of a transaction, and how everything essentially breaks down to the O's and the ones. And so
Hmm.
it's been a really fun course to get through, to solidify my understanding of how transactions work, and why I like well, I mean, I guess I'm pretty nerdy, so I like to understand the what's underneath the hood of something I'm interested in. But for me, understanding the micro uh, helps me understand the big picture. So, I did a bit of a deep dive on the Terra Node mandala system, and I felt like I really had a good sense from a layperson's perspective of
Right.
how that works. But um, to understand the big picture, you really have to understand how the small picture works. And so, a transaction is where it all happens. I mean, it's all just transactions, transactions, transactions. And I said something on Twitter recently as I was kind of contemplating philosophically that, every transaction represents the present moment with your signature. And each transaction references the past to create the future. So your signature for a transaction is like a bridge from the past to the future.
Ooh, so now we are experimenting with the first time machine. Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Uh,
it provides a good
Looks like a
foundation.
double pun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's so neato. Now, one thing that really caught my eye about many of your teachings is that you are someone that is a high end, high level user of AI tools. And you have given many reviews of your experience using different AI tools. And this is something that everyone has their eyes on: AI, artificial intelligence, as a tool in our pocket that we can use in our work and daily life. So, Bridget, what was your experience? When did you first embark onto exploring, researching, and using AI tools in your business?
Mm. Well, I mean, I think when the masses uh, started, it was when generative AI really came on the scene. And that was 2022, I think November-ish of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So not a long, long time. I mean, everyone uses AI and has for a number of years. So I think specifically you're probably referencing generative AI, which,
Okay,
yeah,
yes, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And so that's what really, the chat GPT is the one that everyone kind of has at the top of their mind, because they get all the press, but there are a lot of tools, and I use it sort of, I mean, as someone who works for myself, I use these tools as my workhorse, really. And I use it a lot, certainly every day. So one tool or another, or many, depending on what
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do. Um, and I don't think people should be afraid of generative AI. I think that it is an important tool for humans, and that it actually can enhance your creativity. So it's not that there aren't things to be, there aren't things to be afraid of, or watchful of.
Mm-hmm.
But I do use it a lot. I have a resource that I gave a talk on generative AI a couple months ago in Chicago in May.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I gave it to at a conference for it was nonprofits in the utility world, energy energy and utility affordability coalition was where I gave the talk. And anyway, it was well received, but I was kind of surprised at how many people didn't use these tools. So I think I might be in my own little bubble, but I do believe
Mm-hmm.
that people should just start using it. I could share a reference to uh, what I gave my listeners at the talk. It has kind of
Yes,
my,
please.
sure, it kind of has my top tools, which ones I use a lot. You can use it for YouTube summaries. You can use it for web page summaries. You can use it to, I guess, what I think is anytime you're doing something that is a repetitive task or takes a lot of your work, think about using a chat tool to do it for you, and just start asking it questions, and don't stop asking questions, and keep inquiring further. Know that you're the one that's in charge of the chat. It's not.
Ah,
Question everything that it says, because it does hallucinate. In my talk, I spent a lot of time on the negatives of the LLMs
uh-huh.
and generative AI tools, because there are a lot of negatives. And there, especially the hallucination part. I don't believe that I'm not someone that is afraid of artificial intelligence taking over. So they call it um, artificial general intelligence, and it's sort of this thought process that the AI is going to become smarter than humans, and it's going to take over all of our processes and jobs, and I'm grossly generalizing there,
Mm.
but there is a thought process out there that some find it exciting, others find it scary, and I kind of don't look at either of those positions. I just think that it's another technical tool that actually needs grounding with Bitcoin, but that's another story. But
Yes, we shall get into that for sure. I recently was at a meeting where they were discussing the anniversary. It was like the 160th anniversary of a particular battle in the neighborhood here where I'm from. It was from the Civil War. And the National Parks representative was there, and he had a map of our state of Georgia showing the railroad. And what was so interesting is that the railroad was brought here and it was sent to Terminus, which became the city of Atlanta. The people where I'm from in Marietta, they said, "We don't want the train to come here, send it somewhere else." So that's how Atlanta started. It was the end of the line of the railroad. And
wow.
from that, there was a great opportunity, right? So on the train, just like the little engine that could, the train is bringing the toys and the food to the children over the hill, and all of the commerce that comes along with the train. So this new technology is just wonderful. But I did ask a question at the end. I said, how long after the railroad was laid did this war come? Because the war in Georgia was played all along the railroad. And it was really once the entire railroad was captured that then uh, the war was over. It was one of the pinnacle moments to end the war. And for the local people that lived here at that time, you could see how, oh, the new train is here and let's have commerce and all this wonderful opportunity and resource. And then 30 years later, there's war. So again, it's what people do with technology that
Absolutely.
matters. Just like a gun, a gun could be used to protect or to attack. There's the positive and the negative, like the yin yang. And earlier, you were talking about inner and outer. And I wanted to brush back on that visual because, again, it's talking about that micro, what's inside the transaction, and then the outer of what is this powering for the entire system of the Mandala upgrade that's coming to BSV blockchain and the Terra node functionality. It's just so far out, and we're really getting deep in the weeds in outer space
Hmm.
when we even start to conceptualize it or have a conversation about it. So, this is something that I'd like to bring back to where, with new technology, there's always that um, opportunity and the challenge all in one. And that's just a part of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and are you speaking directly about, are you speaking about technology in general or generative AI?
Both, yes,
Yeah,
because it is a technology and it's about the people. So, with any kind of technology, whether it's a sword or, a Coke bottle or
absolutely.
anything,
Well, I mean,
it could be positive or negative. Like, what was that movie with the Coke bottle fell from the sky? And it was a great resource, but then it also caused strife. So the guy was
I
like,
wish I
I'm going to
knew.
get rid of
No,
it. The
I,
gods must be crazy. Yeah.
oh, okay. No, no. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law always has tried to get me to watch that, and I fall asleep on it. But yes,
Oh, yeah. It's that concept of how there is that opportunity and that challenge within all technology, and that would include AI.
absolutely. I mean, in technology, such a broad term, like you say, but it does. often come back to systems and like, so I even think the human body is a quote technology, it's a system, and I tend to be a minimalist with health stuff, meaning like I think adding things is not the answer, but letting things go, like, whether it's eating less, not taking supplements, not, I'm not really a doctor person. I don't go to doctors. So I let the body as a system be what it is, because it's quite complex. And so if you monkey with any little piece of the system, like, for example, a pharmaceutical drug, it's really, they're created as sort of to attack a symptom rather than understand and exist within the whole body system. So that's kind of where I think the body has innate intelligence as a system. And so the more you monkey with it, the more problems you cause, which, I guess since this is a BSV call, we could liken that to, SegWit and some of the changes that the Bitcoin core group made. I mean, they monkeyed with something that was part of a beautiful design, which creates vulnerability. So, I mean, I really see the analogy there with, what I just said about the human body and Bitcoin. So and I think it's really only in the last few years that more people are starting to understand BSV. And there's a lot of OGs that, know so much that I've learned from, and I'm still learning from, but there weren't that many people that understood. And I think, I think a lot of us have learned from Craig Wright, and he is a master teacher in all of this. And I'm
Definitely.
I'm very grateful for his teachings and for a lot more people who are starting to understand. And so I think everything is really in its right time and place. And I feel like with the Mandala / Terra node upgrade, I feel like they're preparing us for the future with that. I mean, obviously, most of us know that there's not enough transactions that warrant that, but it has to be prepared with the integrity of understanding down to that micro level that I was talking about. That, the people that understand, the UTXO engineers, the script engineers, that understand the intricacies of that. That's the only way that you can build a mandala system that is so grand that can give us billions of transactions per second or millions or whatever it is. That's the only way something can grow so big, is to understand on that micro level. And so I have so much respect for the engineers that are out there doing the work and not getting a lot of respect for it. So I'm here for the long haul with the vision. And
You are indeed. And you're helping so many people understand. Now, before our call, I shuffled my Sato Learn deck, and on the top of the deck, believe it or not, was the card UTXO verse account.
Oh.
And for our audience, since this is Explain Like I'm Five, I'll just share some of this nugget of knowledge here. We have
please.
UTXOs, those are representing unspent outputs from previous transactions and serve as the inputs to new transactions. So it goes with the flow. This is the original form of record keeping used by Bitcoin. In a UTXO based ledger, there are no accounts or wallets at the protocol layer. Instead, coins are stored as a list of unspent transaction outputs, or UTXOs. Each UTXO has a quantity and criteria for spending it. Now, that is versus the account based models. In contrast to ETH, Bitcoin SV operates on a UTXO based model. In an account based system, such as ETH, a user's balance is stored as an account in an account on the blockchain, similar to a bank account. This model offers no advantages over UTXO. The account model is one main reason why ETH has had difficulty scaling and notoriously high transaction fees. UTXO based versus account based. The UTXO method allows us to keep the blockchain scalable and private. It is possible to process many UTXOs at the same time. These parallel transaction scalability. Privacy is also much higher on UTXO systems as long as you are using an hierarchical deterministic wallet. So that is just a tidbit from the Sato Learn deck. And I know, Bridget, that you created a story of the diggers and the stackers. And this is
Oh.
beyond UTXO to another essential part of the system, which is proof of work. Woohoo! We can do it. Just do it. Right. So,
Right.
could you
Yeah.
share that story with us?
Well, sure. I did it kind of in honor because it's the name of this is ELI5, so explain like I'm five. And as we know, pretty much nothing that we've been talking about could be really understood by a 5-year-old. So I was thinking about this before, before we started. I thought, well, let me come up with a story that explains like I'm five, the proof of work versus proof of stake. So it's a really short story, and I'll just read it. It's called The Diggers and the Stackers. So in a vibrant neighborhood lived two groups of kids, each with their own favorite game. The first group called themselves the Diggers. The Diggers loved to play a special game in a big open field. They brought shovels and other tools to dig holes, searching for hidden treasures. Digging was hard work. The kids had to dig deep and keep going even when they felt tired. But their hard work paid off when they found amazing treasures. The kid who dug the deepest hole found the best treasure won a big prize. It was exciting because anyone willing to work hard could win. The rules of the game were set in stone and never changed, making it fair for everyone. On the other side of the neighborhood, there was another group called the Stackers. They had a different kind of game. The Stackers brought their own toys from home and piled them in the middle of the field. The kids who brought the most toys got to decide what games to play and what rules to follow. And some kids had really rich parents, so they tended to be the ones who brought the most toys. It was kind of tricky, though, the way it was set up. None of the kids knew who the biggest toy owners really were. The Stackers game was fun, but it often meant that kids with lots of toys had the most power. And they didn't have to work as hard as the Diggers, but they still made all the decisions. They could even change the rules whenever they wanted. This sometimes made it hard for other kids to have a say in the games or make new rules. It felt unfair to those who had fewer toys. The Diggers game was different. It didn't matter how many toys a kid had. The important thing was how hard they worked. And they also had to use their smarts to buy new digging tools and find faster ways to dig. The Diggers game was fair and open to everyone. Anyone who wanted to dig and work hard could join and have a chance to win. The rules were clear and they didn't change, creating a stable and reliable game. The Stackers, however, could sometimes become unfair. The kids who had the most toys often controlled everything, leaving others out. Both games taught important lessons. The Diggers learned that working hard and being smart helped them find treasures, and they knew that using their brains and muscles paid off in the end. Eventually, the Stackers saw that joining the Diggers was a win-win for them. They realized that digging for treasures with smarts and effort was a great idea. The Diggers welcomed the Stackers to join their game, and they combined the fairness and hard work of the Diggers game with the fun of sharing toys. That's the end.
Bravo!
Yeah, I mean,
Encore.
Well,
Yes, it's
I mean,
adorable and
it's
so true.
well, it's silly, and and it's so thanks for indulging me in the silliness. But I did, I mean, they explain like I'm five is really hard for complex topics, and so
It is.
we're adults, so this is a 5-year-old story, so but simplistically speaking, that is how I see the diggers and the stackers and the proof of work versus proof of stake. And so, obviously, many, would argue certain finer points, etc. But I think when you really study deeply, you will come to that conclusion, and it goes along well with the UTXO model, as we know, because the UTXO model creates scaling with its parallelization, as it's called, and so it has the security of the proof of work uh, model as well. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that is so helpful for people to digest. Because as we see when we look out into the current affairs and different outlets and influencers that talk about blockchain and Bitcoin, and they say crypto, the crypto scene, um, there's a lot that we all need to continue to understand. Now, there's I hesitate to use the word misinformation because it's so overused. But it is true. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I know that myself, back when I jumped off out of the corporate world to go 100% into the Bitcoin scene, I went to the Bitcoin embassy in Atlanta, Georgia, and they were doing a book club about that guy. His last name's Antonopoulos, I
Oh,
think.
Andreas. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. That guy. So he was had written a book about understanding Bitcoin, and we were all in the class and we were studying it. And there was this young man there who was super cool and is still super cool. His name was Michael, and he was explaining to me how the unspent transaction worked and what it was and how important it was. And I was very excited to be there and to listen and learn from these people. But then I realized, and even with the big name like MIT, there's a lot of focus from the people there at MIT on Bitcoin in general. And they are all guns blazing for ETH, which is account based and unscalable. And so a lot of people can see that and say, oh, wow, this is where it's at. I want to be on the bleeding edge. Let me go here. Well, you know what? We're on the leading edge and we ain't bleeding at all. And what we do is we look at the brass tacks. What works? What works? What scales? And we're practical about it. And we're not famous here. Nobody in BSV is famous or some kind of
True,
big thought leader around the world.
true.
So our friends and neighbors might think, oh, what are they going on about? Are they crazy or something? And meanwhile, we're over here as Horton hatching the egg. And you know what? It's going to look just like us. So that's me doing a little bit of spitting game talk, but it's needed. I tell you
Yeah.
what, because there's just so much out there that is glazed over, and all of these famous thought leader, industry leaders, they just schmooze along with BS, and it's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. And you know what? I just go back to a saying that I learned growing up here in the South, and that is bless their hearts. And you have mentioned about the Taurus field. So let's get far out, Bridget. Tell me about how you relate the Taurus field to Bitcoin.
Well, before we do that, I just want to make a comment on what you were saying about the narrative, or however you want to put it. I actually I learned a lot from Andreas Antonopoulos. I read at least one of his books, and before I understood the bigger picture of Bitcoin and the power of it. And so, it's a stepping stone. And what I really think is that
that's fair.
Yeah, it's really about education. And I'm not the first person that has said that in BSV, for sure.
It goes back to Plato.
Well, I mean the issue of that, there's all of most of the tokenized real world asset projects, for example, are on Ethereum or proof of stake based models. And the reason I know that is that I started a project where I created a data model that would allow the tracking of real world tokenized assets projects. So it was pretty detailed data model. But anyway, I let it go because it was just, I felt like I was somewhat wasting my time, because I just saw, again, this whole, like, people don't understand that in order for a real world asset to be tokenized reliably and scale in a global commerce sense, it has to work. and when you really look at the proof of stake systems, they don't work. And so it's something that felt like, I just really understood that it's an education issue. And so I feel like that's where we need to focus. I don't want to say we, I can only speak for me. And so I think corporations need to be educated. I think the C-suite people need to be educated. I think the government types need to be educated, and maybe in small ways. I know you and I talked about, yesterday, we talked a little bit about an idea that I had for, I worked for a nonprofit for a while as a consultant, quite a few years, and they were out of DC, and there was an annual lobby day where we flew in everybody, all the members and interested people in the nonprofit's advocacy, and one day, and set up a series of meetings with legislators. It's called fly-in, it's called lobby day. There's different terms for what this is, and people do it for all different kinds of issues in this country. And so I was thinking it might be interesting to educate legislators in that kind of way. It could be done at a state level too, but this was at the federal level, these fly-ins. And so you basically set up appointments with your legislators in your district on that one day, and there's talking points, it's well organized, and you educate. So, I mean, that's one idea. I mean, another idea I have is, I don't know if it's a consultancy or what, but, they're educating the C-suite people, one-on-one. And perhaps others have tried this. I really don't know. I know that there are a lot of people that have worked hard and have created businesses in BSV. I actually have not created a business yet using BSV, because I'm just sort of intuitively waiting for the right thing to come in my view. So and I also think the scaling aspect of it is, I was sort of, there's a place and time that is right. And for me personally, I haven't built a business on it because the time hasn't felt right to me, and because I think education is coming first. So anyway, I know you asked about the Taurus field, but I felt like I wanted to say all that.
I'm glad you did. You go for it, girl. Like, seriously, I'll ask you 3 questions at once, backwards. But anyway, what I wanted to say again is what you just said. That is that you're absolutely right. It is a stepping stone. And I did try to get to that point earlier, where even though these popular celebrities of blockchain and even popular institutions of the past, that they may have, speak from a sense of authority and be saying uh, false news. It's not true
Absolutely.
that any of this, and they're very convincing, because even yesterday or the day before, I heard on X Spaces there was a call from some senators and some aspiring senators, candidates running for Senate all across the United States. And they were meeting with folks who, they seemed very genuine in their principles, are focused on the creativity of the human individual, and allowing individuals to thrive and to be productive and to own what the fruits of their work. And it sounds very good, but then you look down at the folks that are advising them, and they're proof of stake kids who have all the toys that they want to make up all the rules by themselves. So it's so misleading, because legislators are typically not engineers. They're not scientists. They're usually, ideally, public servants who are, a part of the fabric of society in their home communities, that are serving. This is the ideal, that they go to serve and represent the people. So, in that ideal, as they are so authentic, we would hope then that we could educate them on the fundamentals of the system. But when you have these high level, bygones of the past authority figures educating you with rubbish, then you're misled, and that's unfortunate. So I think that your ideas, I'm 100% behind, and you know me, I'm the ultimate person to raise my hand and volunteer. So
Right.
I will go. Let's go do that. Let's make a lobby day everywhere across the United States, whether it's local or national. Let's educate these folks, because this is a wonderful resource, and it is a natural resource. It's from the human ingenuity. And
Absolutely.
we have this opportunity at this moment in history to do it. So we got to let everybody know what's up, and what happened was,
Yeah,
and what is happening is. And we speak with the authority, because we are the authority. And I say we because it's you, it's me, it's Krez, it's Brett, it's Kurt, it's all these people that we know, Joshua Hensley, Jack Liu, even Jack from Slictionary, all of us together. Let's get to it and go.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm definitely, interested in contemplating and perhaps making that a reality. For sure, I think it would be super cool. I mean, I know there was some effort recently. Brian Doherty and crew, and they flew in some people from another country. I think it was quite a big effort to get that to happen. And I think they made some inroads in educating legislators. But yeah, I mean, I think that, like your comment about the proof of stake kids, it isn't even just the proof of stake kids. It's the BTC. BTC is the Bitcoin Core is obviously a proof of work system, but it was captured by the digital gold narrative and the quote hard money, and so that is also, there it's I think that a lot of the folks are actually well intentioned. So like you said, that your sense when you listened to that space the other day, you felt like there was, at least in our conversation.
Really good
Yeah, no,
people. Yeah.
and they're just, they don't understand, and they don't see the power of the real technology that can help. And my feeling is we need only one blockchain. I am a Bitcoin maximalist that way. And because when you understand the system, it can do everything. It would be way too confusing to have multiple blockchains. But I mean, whether or not the world will embrace this technology remains to be seen. But to me, what matters is the truth of things. If something has substance and if it has integrity, then that's what I put my energy towards. So I was never in it to make a whole bunch of money and to get the right coin. And I mean, I did experiment on dexes and buying different things because I wanted to learn the technology. And there probably was a little part of me that was riding that wave of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, make a whole bunch of money and blah blah blah. And so, but that was a very small part of why I was interested. And certainly now that I'm in BSV, it is not at all for. I mean, I think that's the wrong, as many people that are in the technology understand. It's the wrong approach, is to look at it from, you know, an investment standpoint, because I mean, yes, you're investing your time and energy into a technology, and BSV is, in my view, a commodity that will drive the new internet if it works out as we hope. And so, I guess technically, you can invest wisely in a commodity, and but that isn't necessarily you know the only way to look at it. It's really about learning and understanding how the technology can fix a lot of problems, and it won't be any panacea. It's not going to be save the world type thing. It's just a really advanced technology that can make many things work a lot better. And as I've said, I don't know if I've said this to you, but and this is not original for me, but the way I simply explain the new internet is, the old one was read, write, and the new one is read, write, and own. And so that ownership is not just for individuals; it's for companies. It's for many use cases where you own the bits of data that are on the internet, and that has unbounded use cases and possibilities. So,
Amen. That's what it is. That's it. Yes. And thank you. That is so clear for people to hear. And you may also hear the hammering,
I
the
do.
hammering of my neighbor in the background. And I would just like to give a shout out to Rumi, the poet, because,
Ah,
he would hear the hammer hammering, and many hammers hammering. And he began swirling, and he was a whirling dervish, and an ecstatic thinker and poet, and really an influential person throughout history, throughout the ages. And so that again brings us to, there might be a challenge, but you could see it as an opportunity. And that's very exciting. I'm just thankful that we are here, Bridget, you and I, we can speak and interact. And there's many other wonderful folks here that are engaged in learning, and peer to peer. We can let people open their eyes or their mind to the light of wisdom, of understanding of what this is, and also through the applications of it. So I know that you had shared a video showing Jake Jones talking about the integration of IPv6 with BSV blockchain. And tell us, what is your understanding there of what's going on with using AWS cloud while we are on chain scaling for the world with Terranode and IPv6?
hmm. Well, I'm not an expert in IPv6, but I've read up enough to know that uh, its use along with BSV can really ground the internet. And also, from my understanding, IPv6 just even by itself fixes a certain aspect of the network topology so that it pushes things more to the edges, as opposed to this middle layer where, let's just say, roughly speaking, things can get lost in translation. So there's this, and again, I'm not an expert, but I understand network address translation. It was sort of like a fix for IPv4 that reflects to some degree this idea I'm talking about, where it pushes things to the edges. So when you have things at the edges, you have a lot more flexibility, but there is this security piece that Bitcoin can bring to the IPv6 addressing. So when you combine the Bitcoin addressing with IPv6 addressing, then you have the peer-to-peer, the true peer-to-peer with security. And so, I mean, and again, I'm not an expert on it. I do have an article that I wrote on my blog that gets into it a little bit. I think Latif Ladid is a man who, someone could look into if they wanted to start looking into IPv6. But also Jake Jones is a really expert person in understanding the technical facets of why IPv6 is an important part of the new internet paradigm that BSV can bring us. So I would just recommend, Googling Jake Jones, Googling Latif Ladid, IPv6, Bitcoin. There's a paper that I think Enchain did that talks about the combining of the Bitcoin address and the IPv6 addressing. That's super, super powerful. So yeah, it's an exciting aspect.
Thank you. That's right. And all of us, when we have a moment and are ready to learn more, we can go to this wise website you created, which is the bsvbetter.org.
Thank you.
That's B like Bitcoin, S like scaled, V version better.org. And you can go there and enjoy all of these resources that Bridget has created for us and continuously learn more and more forever. And I know that you have just said about IPv6 and about, to bring it back to AI. How do you see blockchain being the grounding of artificial intelligence and LLMs,
right?
Integrity and security?
Well, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of technical ways that can happen. The one that is kind of jumps out to me as the most important would be that these models, these large language models, are of course built on large amounts of data. And so there's one of the controversies is that, when something is quote generated from the past training, people's their IP is being infringed upon, whether it is a visual artist IP or a writer, what have you. And so that is, there are some lawsuits out there going on right now about this. But if you think about BSV and ownership of your data, if you owned every bit of data that you put out there on the internet and you controlled it with your private key, without a middleman out there as a warehouse for it, and I don't mean the data can be stored on a warehouse, but your private key and encryption controls who gets to see that data, who gets to use it. And so if that was the underpinning of these models, then you have a whole different world. And you have a grounding of the data that feeds these models. And perhaps people can be paid in, and I'm going to use the most important word in Bitcoin, and that is micropayments, or microtransactions. And that's the key word, just to digress a second. And I think we're out of time here, but I think it's an important word to leave with, and that's the micropayments, the microtransactions that BSV enables. So no other blockchain can do that. And so, it's very connected to what I was talking about with how the LLMs could benefit from a Bitcoin enabled internet. So, yeah.
Well, I got jazz snaps for you. That's right. Yes, we do have that. Micropayments. That's what we're all about. So thank you for bringing us full circle, Bridget. You brought
Absolutely.
us right back home to the heart of the matter. And I am grateful for our opportunity to have this conversation here. Thank you to the BSV Association for hosting this space and inviting us here today. And everyone who is listening, please go to follow Bridget. And now, do I say Doran or Doran?
Doran.
Doran, yes. Go to visit Bridget Doran on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where we are during the workday, right? That is
Yeah.
where we find out information and news. And of course, X, Twitter, Twitter X, what have you, is also a great resource for tech and crypto people to gather and, beat their chests and rabble rouse or actually inform. LinkedIn is really where you can find all your old colleagues, friends, classmates. Everybody's there, and we've got our eyes on business. So that's what I do like about the LinkedIn social network is that it's more business focused and it's fun. So everyone go there and follow Bridget. And also, again, go to her website, bsvbetter.org, and learn more. But always, you can reach out to us here, comment on the thread of this space with any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions. We will love to hear from you. And Bridget, I wonder, this is kind of spur of the moment, but have you ever joined the BSV Discord before?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely on a couple of different ones. The Once at Ordinals one is really fire. Super cool stuff happening there. I mean, these engineers on there are like doing stuff. It's super cool. And I actually participate in the GM thing where you if you go on there every day and you say GM any day, you don't have to go on every day. You get GM tokens that were built using a derivation of the one-sat ordinals protocol. So
I never knew
yeah, no,
that.
it's super fun. It's super fun,
Thank
and you learn a
you.
lot. And there, one of the things that I'm super tapped into lately is the identity piece of how this technology will actually instate itself, and there is a recent thread on identity. So those engineers in there are building identity protocol. Nchain has done an identity protocol, and then there's a couple other identity protocols out there that I've studied that are interesting, but they're not using BSV. So anyway, it's yeah, I would highly recommend going to that Discord.
Thank you. And also, one last point to give some hope to everyone listening, no matter what tribe you're in, here, there, or anywhere, there is the universal blockchain asset that has been proposed by Owen Vaughn at Nchain. And this is a great resource for folks and companies who do eventually want to trade across blockchains. There is that lifeboat there with the UBA. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even though there may be a misinformation or misunderstanding in the early days, step by step, we can do it. We can all continue to learn and educate others and really bring this resource home for everyone around the world. So, thank you, Bridget. Have a
Absolutely.
wonderful
Thanks
day.
for having
And
me.
you're the best.
Oh,
Thank
you are.
you. Bravo.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. And on a final note, because I'm totally hamming it up, let me tell you all about some super exciting resources that are available to you now. I will simply look here and find them. We have so many more resources, such as we have Code Along standardized BSV blockchain TypeScript SDK coverage is here. Go to the YouTube video and code along. Then grab a copy of our ebook about the next era in minor economics, embracing co-opetition and infrastructure. Then, like we're saying, join the BSV community on Discord. All you need to do to start is say GM, good morning. Connect with fellow enthusiasts, stay updated on the latest news, and dive deep into blockchain discussions. Then watch Connor Murray, Stewardship Director, BSV Blockchain, as he discusses the Chronicle release. And follow our BSV ELI5 guest today, Bridget Doran, on X at HB Gnostic and on LinkedIn. So her Twitter handle or X handle is at HBGNOSTIC. And learn about the details of the BSV Blockchain Network Access Rules, otherwise known as NAR. So we will share these links today below on the thread and wish you all a beautiful afternoon, morning, and evening. Cheers, y'all. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.